Welcome to the Steve and Cimino Says Boom podcast, issue number 9.
Ball!
Woohoo, Stevie, we got a good one today on issue number 9. And I'm John Cimino. We got Steve in the house. Steve Says Boom. And below us, always doing our technical support, it's Otto from the grotto. From Three Men in a Basement.
What's up, everybody? Thank you very much for letting me hang out with these guys. I've truly enjoyed this. But before we get started, remember, you guys have to comment, like, share, subscribe, all these videos. Get people out there. Let them know that we've got comic book historians truly talking about the golden and silver age of comics who like to get deep into the weeds. And as always, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Now, can I show you guys something before we get started?
Absolutely.
Otto went on a comic book hunt yesterday. Otto had a great time. Otto also picked up a coverless copy of Journey into Mystery 112.
Wow.
Did we talk about this book?
Yeah, now, Otto, I don't know whether you knew the rules, but all 112s purchased in the United States have to be sent to John Cimino.
They do, okay.
For inspection.
Especially even the coverless?
Even coverless.
Okay,
oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, boy, did I have fun delving through this. And just like you guys were talking about, this is a really fun book. So go check out this previous episode.
And that comes into what we're doing today, because I'm going to be talking about another standalone issue that it took me to the next level, where 112, Journey into Mystery 112, was more of a action-packed, oriented, Jack Kirby slugfest. This time, we're going to do Daredevil 163, another slugfest, but a more street level slugfest, because beware the Hulk. This was from 1980. Now this was very influential, and it was a scary issue for me. And before I go into it, you should know that Iron Man 131 was also on the rack that month. And why that's so interesting is that, Steve, remember when during the 80s, they would have those little checklists, and then they would say what issues is out, and they would have little blurbs?
Yes.
Well, when that came out, it was so weird to me, because, I'm starting to learn this is in the 80s, so I'm starting to learn. Now, as you remember, when I talked about this in issue number 1, this was the issue that I brought to that Spark class that basically I got in my school. I got comics to be able to be read. But what was so interesting to me is that when I started reading those little checklists, I'll never forget, it said the Hulk was in Daredevil 163, and then he was also in Marvel Superheroes, he was also in his own Hulk issue, and then he was also in Iron Man 131. And I remember the little blurb that said, he's really getting around this month, isn't he? I just thought that was so cool, because it was something that I noticed, and they were talking about it in those little checklists. And it was just so cool that these two issues that really got into my head and really got me crazy about the Hulk during all this Hulk stuff just really got to me. So I just wanted to show that issue came out the same month. Okay, Daredevil 163. Now this issue right here, I've read this issue a million times, and I would also, this is the only issue I ever did. It was like some satanic ritual. I would sometimes dim the lights, light some candles. Now this is me at like 10, 11 years old, and read this issue and read that issue. Why? Why, John? Why would you do that? Because this was the most scariest issue of the time that I ever read. There was nothing like it up to that point, because you got to remember, this is Frank Miller drawing it, Roger McKenzie writing it, and Klaus Janson and Joe Rubinstein doing the inks. Now that I have a more detailed eye, I can decipher who Rubinstein and Klaus Janson are kind of similar, but today I can figure it out, but back then I didn't. But I'll tell you, right before we get into this issue, I had Joe Rubinstein when I was a comic dealer, and I was in New Hampshire. I'm doing I'm doing my stuff, and I see this guy. He's digging through all my dollar comics on the floor, and he's digging. He's been there for about a half hour, and I look. It's this bald-headed guy that looks a little like Jim Starlin, and I'm like, I know that guy. So he stands up and he comes to me and he's getting his stuff, and I go, Joe? He goes, yeah, Joe Rubinstein. I go, oh, the inker. And he goes, yeah. I go, I just have to tell you, Joe, while I'm counting all this stuff. And I said, I have to tell you, Joe, Daredevil 163 was an issue that just totally changed my life and actually scared me. And he was kind of complimentary. Joe can be a little hot and cold if people that know him and stuff, but he was actually in a good mood that day, and he thanked me for it. And I told him it took me years to figure out whether it was him or Klaus Janson doing the pages. And as we go through the pages in this, you're going to realize who's who. But okay, it was just very satisfying for me to tell him that, because as you know, Steve and Otto, it comes from your whole life, and it's like, ugh, and I don't care if he's good or bad. I just have to tell him for myself, Okay, so here we go. Daredevil 163, Beware the Hulk. First page. Now look at this. Look at the Hulk in that page. He's scary as heck. Like, that was something, like when I saw that as a kid, I was like, ooh, that doesn't look like how the Hulk normally looks, like as Sal Buscema might do it. Look at the shading on that. That right there will dictate the rest of this issue, because I was just like, wow, like I was just like, oh, look at the eyes, the savagery, like, oh my God, monster sighted in Manhattan. Okay, so here we go. We see Matt Murdock at this ball, and somebody's reading the paper of the Hulk. Okay, next page, Otto. Okay, he's doing all this, talking and all this stuff. That's fine, but he's hearing something, because as people know, Matt Murdock has that intuition, that radar sense and stuff, that he starts hearing something. Okay, next page, Otto. So he starts hearing something, and he knows that only one person has that type of heartbeat. And he's like, I know who's down there. So you see him, he leaves the party, jumps off and all that stuff, and he follows the heartbeat. And there's the hand. Okay, next page, Otto.
There we go.
Okay, blind alley. He hears the Hulk's heartbeat. Boom, boom. Now, you got to understand something. Like, look at the Hulk. That's Joe Rubinstein right there. That's his inking and stuff. But look at how the Hulk looks. He doesn't look, I don't know, with Frank Miller doing, Miller has this new age type of drawing that's starting to come into the field. But the Hulk looks scary. Like, for some reason, I got that. And what I love about this is that Matt Murdock is like, here he is looking at him. He sees the Hulk, and he's just like, what are you doing here? And he knows, okay, the Avengers are out of town. The Fantastic Four is out of town. So it's up to friggin' Matt Murdock to just use his wits. And as you notice, there's a lot of thinking. This is what I always realized, and all the way back to Stan Lee, he always had the Daredevil thinking. He always had the thought bubbles in all those Daredevils. And so you can look from the very beginning, because he's a very introverted guy, and because he's blind too. I never realized that till later, though, like, because he's going to perceive things different from us. So he's always in his head. But okay, that issue with the Hulk, that he sees the Hulk in the street. Next page, Otto.
I just want to comment, Steve. There was nobody, in my opinion, and John, just so you guys know, who did the radar sense like Frank Miller. You know what I mean? His imagery on those top two panels, those three panels, to me were just enlightening as a kid to see that, to get an idea of what the radar sense is, And
that's the first time. And that's the first time I'm kind of seeing this. You got to, as my eyes, I'm seeing this. I'm seeing the Hulk looking different. Those blotchy type inks are different. The artist style is different. And I'm not a crazy Frank Miller fan, but I'll tell you that it just was very impressionable at me at a young age. Because even if you go into that Iron Man 131, he was that was drawn by Bob Layton, so he was more looking like the '70s Hulk. This Hulk looked a little bit different. Go
Now,
ahead, the next page.
if I can add something also about Frank at this time, I think people tend to forget just how good his draftsmanship was at this point. It's very smooth. It's beautiful anatomy. It's completely different to anyone that has seen more modern Frank, where he seems to have lost his ability to actually draw. Right now, he is young. Okay, he's
Hungry.
trying. Okay,
Hungry.
and secondly, he has time because at this time it's not a monthly book; it's bi-monthly. Okay, he has time to really work on his panels and get it straight. And this is his first time, as far as I know, that he's going to get to draw the Hulk, of course, which is being drawn by everyone. But to me, again, as a Sal Buscema and John Buscema fan, I was always impressed at this point in time with his draftsmanship. Just wanted to put that in there.
And he was a student of Neil Adams. So the impact and the visuals that he's bringing now is what Neil Adams did back then. So you can see he's such a student. Okay, look at this. It's Matt Murdock talking to the Hulk very calmly. If you notice what he's saying, there's always periods. And I noticed this as a kid. He's talking to the Hulk to calm him down. The Hulk is still angry. Everybody's looking at him. So then, obviously, the Hulk takes him. He throws him to the side. Now he mentions the word, not even Banner. And look at that face of the Hulk right there. That's like a la Jim Steranko when he's lifting up his name and that Marie Severin changed from Hulk Annual #1. Look at that face. You're like, even reading this as a kid, when he said that and the Hulk turned to him, I was like, oh my God. Like, whoa. Otto, next page. A Hulk obviously grabbing him, dodges out of the way, rips up the chunk of concrete, and Daredevil talking to him calmly. You can't do it this way. There's got to be a better way. And he's talking to him, and he lets the Hulk calm down, and he throws, and then he just throws it to the side. What is so interesting, though, I got to say, I started being sympathetic for the Hulk, but like the Hulk scared me, and I like wanted Daredevil to handle this. I don't know. I'm always a Hulk fan. This was the first time ever in my life that the other hero was. I was concerned about him, and I was cheering him on. I wasn't cheering the Hulk on. I have no idea. It just was great. Next page, Otto. Talks to the Hulk, calms down, changes him back to Banner. Boom. Now, first off, look at the, obviously the draftsmanship once again. Look, like these are now Frank Miller's doing things that, like I said, he's having an impact that Neil Adams did, and he's showing that he can do this. And if you notice, it's a very dark, like everything is dark. And I noticed that as a kid too. Like the Hulk is usually, in the desert, the light, all this stuff, and it's dark. And then you see Banner having his nightmares and all that stuff, and Murdock gonna bring him. The Murdock is such a, he'll let him sleep at his house, all that stuff. He takes care of him. Okay, next page, Otto. I love this right here. You see them talking to each other, but you see Banner while they're talking. Banner's getting pissed off because the army and all that stuff won't leave him alone. Look how he's getting angry, and then Matt Murdock recognizes it and then calms him back down with his voice because like I said, he can feel everything that he's doing. Anyways, he lets him get a la the Hulk of the TV series, helps him out, gets Banner. He wants Banner to get out of the city because why? The Hulk in New York City is not good.
But I tell you what is also interesting about this page. Take a look at the color of Banner's trousers. So somewhere in his house, Matt Murdock had purple trousers.
That's just key. We don't talk about that, Otto. We don't, we don't talk about that, Steve. Okay, here we go. Next page. Matt Murdock thinking everything. Now, here's Banner trying to get out of the city. Now, this is so awesome. And even as a kid, you can feel the you could feel like everything that's going on. Like it's very like he goes into the subway and stuff, but it's very claustrophobic. Obviously, Banner's not good with this, and he really plays this up. Roger McKenzie did this perfect. I don't know, for some reason his style of writing went perfect with Miller. Miller did it so perfectly. Okay, so anyways, he goes into the subway. What happens? Everybody's pushing to get in. Guys smoking in front of you. Banner's coughing. Next page, Otto. Oh, I love it. Here we go. Everything getting shoved, getting pushed around. Can't take it anymore. Gets burnt. What happens? Starts getting pissed off. Now, he can't take it anymore. Stop. Okay. Look at that last panel of the Hulk. Look at his face. I don't know. Even as a kid, I was just like, I loved how Miller kept the shirt on him. I love, a la the Hulk TV series, but it reminded me of the Mego 12-inch Hulk. Do you remember the Mego 12-inch Hulk, Otto, when we were a kid? You know that the Hulk, he had the white shirt and then the ripped pants?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's from 1970. And I just loved, because Sal Buscema and everybody else, they never drew him with the shirt. I love the ripped shirt. Okay, so anyways, the Hulk gets crazy in the subway. Next page, Otto. Look at this panel. Like, he just can't take it. Boom. Like, just look at the Hulk's face. That's not a normal Hulk face. That's like a scary Hulk. And even as a kid, I noticed that. And then here we go. Look at how the panel works. Hulk crashes through the subway to the top. Matt Murdock hears the heartbeat, know what's going on, and then obviously clicks his cane into his billy club, opens up his shirt. We're ready to go. What can Daredevil do against the Hulk? This is, even as a kid, I'm thinking, what is he gonna do? Like, what the hell? What's gonna happen? Next page, Otto. And this is where stuff. Hulk going nuts. Daredevil comes up to him, starts talking to him, calming him down. But what happens behind? And I always love this picture. You never really saw this. A cop, all scared from behind, shoots the Hulk in the back of the head. And then it drives him nuts. Look at that picture of the Hulk getting shot in the back of the head. You never saw that in anything previously that I ever saw. Like, it was just so unbelievable. Like, you were like, what? Like, I don't know, just the expressions. It's almost like a little bit of a horror, like a horror aspect of this. Okay, Daredevil gets pushed aside. The guy shooting the gun. Bam, 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 bam. Click, click, click. Next page, Otto. Okay, I love Daredevil doing his best. Look at that top panel. I love how the Hulk is looking down and the way his face is. And look at Daredevil. That is classic Frank Miller doing his karate and all this stuff. Okay, the next page. Oh, just look at how awesome. Hitting him, all his kung fu stuff, all the stuff he loved. That's typical Frank Miller. But this next page is what changed the world for me. Otto? This is the first time I ever saw a superhero bleed. He crashes down. Look at the blood split. I could not believe that they were I never saw that before. This turned comic fun into a little horror to concern to reality. I never saw that before. I was so enamored by that. I'm like, oh my God. He's bleeding, and then you see the Hulk in the next panel. Notice that he doesn't put the pupils in the Hulk's eyes. Makes him look freaking crazy. And the Hulk is just screaming for Banner. Where's Banner? Where's Banner? And then this bus comes at him, and Hulk thinks it's Banner. He's like, you! Next page. Oh my God. I love it. Daredevil showing his heart and soul. This next page is freaking insane. The Hulk kicks the thing. Look at Daredevil going crashing through the window. You never saw that before. And look at the Hulk's rage. Hulk hates Banner. Banner tried to hurt Hulk with machines. Hulk hates Banner. Look at how he's just ripped. That is freaking insane. Like I said, even as a kid reading that, you're like, what would it like? I want the Hulk out of there. I'm concerned about Daredevil's safety. Like he's just doing this because everybody else is out, and then the camera guys, they're all saying like Daredevil's going nuts. Look at the Hulk smashing that bus. Bow, 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 bow. Oh, I love it so much. Next page, Otto. Daredevil doing his best to trying to save. They're all looking at Daredevil too. Like they're all so, what is Daredevil going to do? He doesn't give up. You know, they're saying all that stuff. Here's typical Frank Miller doing his kung fu stuff. I love it. But and he's trying to tell him you can't find Banner that way. You know, he's still trying to talk to him, trying to calm him down while he's attacking and distracting him. But the Hulk has just had enough. He said, no, Banner, you know, he can't take it. Smacks him, goes crashing into the cans. Next page, Otto. And love this. Now this is so etched in my head. Look at Daredevil bleeding, so hurt, coughing, and still talking to the Hulk. You can't do this. Like still, it shows such heart. Obviously, a la Daredevil #7 versus the Submariner. But this is the reason why this affected me more is because, like I said, the realism of it. Frank Miller with Klaus Janson and Joe Rubenstein inks, just you can see it. Look at him bleeding, like he's coughing. He gets the 2x4 and just trying to help himself up. How I never saw that before. It was so. And then the Hulk's looking at him, and he sees that. Wait a second, like this guy really does care about me. Like he really is concerned about me because look, Daredevil with the blood and then walking away. Now look at the next panel. So awesome. The next page. Daredevil falls. He needs medical attention, and they're asking, "Where's the Hulk?" The Hulk is leaping off, and they were saying like you could even see tears in his eyes. The Hulk realizes, look at that. That is such powerful stuff that Daredevil actually made him leave because the Hulk realized that Daredevil guy, that this other guy, he really did care about him, and he really did. And the Hulk jumping off looking like he lost his friend. Like he doesn't really understand, but he feels sympathetic and he knows he did wrong and leaps off. Okay, that's it. But once again, that issue, for the time, the darkness of it, the realism of that was the first time I ever saw the realism. And that is what, Frank Miller, a la Neil Adams' student, who first brought in the realism back in the late 60s, 70s. And now you got Frank Miller taking it up a notch with the blood, I don't know how he got. Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief at that time. Let him get away with that. Okay, Steve, I'm done. Give it to me. What do you got to say, brother?
Well, again, I was never a massive Daredevil fan. I do have, basically a complete run, and I always liked him when he was crossing over into other titles. But Daredevil as a character himself, was never that really interesting to me. However, whenever you read a Daredevil issue, it's always, the writer is always letting you know just how courageous this man is. Okay, how he goes beyond. I mean, I think even more so than Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man has the same thing, of course, when Spider-Man fought the Juggernaut. It's the same thing. He was completely overwhelmed. But Spider-Man has incredible strength. Daredevil is just a highly trained athlete. He's not on drugs. He doesn't have a super soldier serum. He wasn't bitten by, a small Daredevil back in the day. Okay, he has no radioactive stuff. So if you are a fan of people just being normal, like if you were a Batman fan, you can gravitate toward what Daredevil is doing. And in this issue, and we really need to give credit to Roger McKenzie, a name that has slipped away from fandom. Is he still alive, Roger?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm going to try to look that up.
Because you're right. Roger is also, writing this issue and showcasing Daredevil's courage, but when it comes to Frank, again, people are always talking about his story and plotting ideas, but what they forget is his panel design when he's doing a fight scene. Okay, and his panel design is very intricate. He's doing lots of small little panels. Okay,
Steve, just really quick, he is still alive. He is still alive.
Great. I would love to, have access, or maybe we can get him here at some point. But what is so spectacular about this stuff here, and this is stuff that a lot of artists they tried to copy for a while, and then in the 1990s they completely moved away from this, which is the compact panel design. Look how many panels there are in that page. Okay?
And look at the top. You can see every detail of what the Hulk is doing. Look at him running and grabbing the light pole and just squishing it in his hand. Like, you see everything. That's very rare today. Even with all those word balloons, look at how it's all so clear.
8 panels of detail. And in every,
yes.
And Stephen, I'm glad you brought this up, because in every panel, it's all relevant to exactly what's going on from different perspectives. You've got the Daredevil in the 3rd panel up on top. You've got the police guy. And now you've got them in the 5th panel face to face with each other. And then right in the middle, bam. And that's like just amazing. So that's really awesome, man. Thank you for bringing that up. That's great.
It's something that always struck me with Frank Miller was, I do know that he got a lot of his inspiration from, Japanese style comics. And Japanese style comics, when they broke down a fight scene, was very technical. And a lot of, American superhero comics, it's like the guy turns up, there's a punch, and the guy flies away. But not Frank. So in that panel where Daredevil is floating and smacking at the Hulk, he's diving around, he's doing all this stuff. You have to have, see that panel right there. That is genius. Look at the way that, Daredevil is flying around. So Frank is giving you everything you want as a young reader, okay? He's not asking you, just flip open the page. Stop and take a look at what I'm drawing. Stop and take a look.
And it's almost like the Kung Fu movies, too, at the time.
Yes. So as an observer, as a youngster, I was like, wow, I could envision the way Daredevil is flying around each panel. Of course, later on, in actual fact, we had just had in the previous 2 issues, if I'm correct, incredible fight scenes with Bullseye, where Daredevil and Bullseye are doing these fight scenes where it's sort of hand to hand and you can see the movements. And most other artists, they wouldn't have bothered with that. There would just been like one punch and a guy lying on the floor. So he was bringing 2 things. He was bringing that darkness, because there's a lot of darkness in this issue, and even I can see it. Yeah. And he's bringing this action sequences. So for me, again, I think I'm in the same boat as John on this. I began as I was not a huge Frank Miller fanatic. And by the way, there were many. It was John Byrne, Frank Miller, and George Perez who were the 1980s kings, okay? Right. They were like titans that walked on Olympus, just even to speak about them was like, oh wow, Frank Miller, but the groundwork of his legend is set right here at this early stage. We haven't got Elektra yet. We haven't got, the death of Elektra and all that stuff. We haven't got Batman Year One. So it's fascinating to see him grab a character, or be given a character like the Hulk to draw and do it in such a masterful way. So I tip my hat to this, and it's funny. I've actually had the opportunity to speak with Frank, and he's very witty. He's very funny. But the next time I see Frank, I think I'm going to bring up this issue, and I want to talk to him about it.
And another thing too, it's like this issue, as you said, it's a basis of what's to come. You can see the elements of what he's putting in. He's still drawing a superhero comic. He's still doing it the Marvel way, but he's throwing his little reality in there with the blood, and you can still see, and then you can see what happens with the Dark Knight. You can see what happens of all those things that he's going to do later on and all that stuff. It becomes so exaggerated, but that's why I love this. It's like that's him raw and still doing the superhero comics, but he's adding his little dynamic in it, a la Neil Adams before him. His you can just see he's putting in his.
And also, in one of the pages, I don't know if you know if you can put it up, Otto. It's the page where it's Matt Murdock is walking into the bedroom after Banner wakes up from his nightmare. Okay, it's a very spectacular little scene. It's just a small little. Now take a look at that bottom panel. That bottom panel, if you take away the color, can fit in Sin City, right there, with the shadowing of the lights. Wow, we knew it was sort of a way where he was going to go. But that scene, he didn't have to draw the rest of the interior of the room. And this adds to that darkness, John, that you felt when you were a kid. Look how dark that room is with that little bit of like light coming through the windows. What a genius room.
Look at the first panel of the Hulk, the darkness on his face, like just the shadow on his face. You never saw that. Like even on the third panel, like you see this, it's so dark. Like I said, the Hulk was scary to me in this issue.
But it does remind me of some of the scenes from Hulk 1 through 6 by Kirby. The Hulk was far darker in those issues because he was just, and so some of it does remind me of that.
Oh, I know. I think I know what you're talking about. The one through it's when Ditko sometimes he put the black underneath the eyes. He did that in number 2, issue 2, when he was inking the Kirby, and then he did it in issue 6 with the darkness. That's what you get. Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's that darkness that it scared me. I saw it. It's one of those things that you see it and you feel it, but you don't know that you see it. Now that I'm more educated and I can see what he was doing, I get it. But as a kid, it's just raw to me, and I'm just like, that's why I put the lights dim, and I was like, I'm gonna read a horror story. This reminded me of a horror story, and it was just unbelievable. Otto, you got something to say?
I do, and I just think this was so enlightening the way we brought this up. But I want to talk about. I know we already touched on it, but this panel right here. So one of my favorite books of all time is, I'm glad Steve talked about it, was Daredevil 181, The Death of Elektra. I have read that, and I'll never forget when Bullseye said, "You're good, but me, I'm magic," and slit Elektra's throat. And I'm seeing it from behind. But what I appreciate about this is, if you just take a look at Daredevil's movements and Hulk is a big, big character. When in the next run, Daredevil, probably the biggest character besides Kingpin that Frank has to draw, is probably Gladiator, right? Like physically big,
Right.
So the sleek ninja style of Elektra, the Bullseye, the hand characters, slim and trim, sleek figures. But there in this, we just see the size of the Hulk, and his motion. And then, so, I mean, this, to me is a precursor of just all those panels that's going to come during the whole Elektra Bullseye Daredevil run, which, spanned for many issues. So this is great, man. I'm geeking out right now.
Wait, and go to
by
the
way,
page.
this issue also benefits greatly from the Daredevil omnibus that was printed when they recolored it and it's on the nice paper.
Yeah.
It really shines. Previous to that, when they reprint, the early 1960s material, it's like, okay, it seems better in the original newspaper format. But when I first looked at the omnibus and I looked at the art and I looked at the way the coloring is bouncing off the pages, and that's, I don't know where did you grab those picture shots from? But the coloring is just beautiful the way it's coming off. So it's colored very brightly, but still dark. Wow, what a masterpiece.
And one thing you guys have not seen, this is total Frank Miller. Can you go to the blood scene, Otto, when he gets thrown off? And you'll notice these little panels throughout the issue. This is total Frank Miller at his best. This is something that I never saw before. But if you go to when...
I'm just trying to find it, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when Daredevil... Oh, I love it. I love, just everything. The darkness. Oh, so cool.
All right, let's see. No, okay. I'm going to find it eventually. There we go.
Right here, the next one.
Right
there
here.
You go.
Yes.
Okay, check this out. I love how Frank Miller draws a distant Daredevil, and he's black, but his belt is red, his gloves is red, the DD's red, and the boots are red. You'll see that throughout the issue. That is all Frank Miller, stylized Daredevil from a distance. How cool is that? That's the first time I ever saw that, when Daredevil was from a distance. His boots and all that stuff are still red, but he draws him black. I never saw that before. And you'll see periodically through this issue little panels, and you got the red boots, because he specifically said that that's how he wanted. That's not the inker. He's telling them, and then he's telling the colorist, yeah, make sure his boots are red and all that's red when you see him at a distance, because they could have simply not had him like that. That was cool, Frank Miller as hell.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, and that's why it's really good. We're seeing him young right here, because obviously he had begun drawing Daredevil issue 158, and he doesn't actually start the full scripting until 168, because he does a co-script with Roger on 167. So what we're seeing right here is a young Frank that's, bringing what he can bring to the game. And now we can, with all these years in hindsight, we can look back on it and really enjoy it for what it was, because, as we know, Frank can't draw like that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just a wonderful thing to see. And, Frank is not, you don't think of the Hulk when you mention Frank Miller's name.
Yeah.
That's not the first thing you think of. Okay. You're going to think of Daredevil and Batman. Okay.
Mhm.
And then Sin City, of course. But in this issue, he really does a masterful job. And I'm sure that, if we had him on the show at some point, we could ask him, did he look at those early Hulk 1 through 6, to make it darker, to make it more scary? Did he love the deep coat inking? That's the sort of stuff that I want to know, the sort of getting in the weeds right there. And believe you me, the next time I get a chance to speak to him, I'm definitely going to be bringing up this issue.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like I said, it's a turning, pivotal moment in my life too, by seeing that stuff, but also seeing Frank grow as well. That's the stuff that I love. Like, he wasn't too exaggerated then. He was still street level and all that. And I thought years later, he started becoming a little too exaggerated for me and all that stuff. This impression also, not just Neil Adams, but it also reminds me of Steranko, because if you look at Steranko, what he brought to the page, it was so radically different. The pop art and that, it must have been so impressionable. And that is what I see with Frank Miller. It's like you see a different type of style that's not seen before. It's like you look at it and you're like, whoa.
This is very Steranko-ish.
Yes, it is. I agree. That is a great eye. I didn't think of it before, but now looking at the pages and the design,
this is very Steranko.
Yeah, Neil Adams, Steranko. It's not Kirby. It's not Sam Buscema. It's not John Buscema.
No,
this is something different. I can definitely see the Steranko type things. Definitely.
Yeah. So any last words, Otto? You got anything for me?
Oh man, hey guys, I'm just along for the ride, and listening to you guys and your excitement. But just think about this though. So we've taken Frank Miller, right? We've taken Frank Miller, talked about inks of
Rubenstein and Klaus.
Yeah, right. There we go. And now we've brought in Neil Adams, and we've talked about a Steranko influence in one panel. But in that one panel, like I said, so that's been very interesting. So again, guys, just a fanboy, happy to take the ride with you guys.
And Otto, can you put up the cover of 163 one more time? I want to show you something. When I was a kid, inside, you see Daredevil bleeds. But if you look closely, I missed it when I picked up this, when I was looking at this issue. I didn't see it till later. If you look at Daredevil's face, obviously he shaded it good, but he's dripping blood from his nose and his mouth. And if you look at it, and obviously he had to do it stylized, because you couldn't have a superhero bleeding at that time on the cover and doing all that, but he did it. And I looked at it later, and it's like, oh my God, he is bleeding. And that was so cool to see that. Like I said, it was such a radical change. And even the Hulk's arm, look at that. That's Klaus Janson. That's all Klaus Janson. You can see that, the way the ink's, but it works. I'm not a big Klaus Janson fan either, but this issue just works. I call this as one of the first horror superhero story I ever got. And I was voting for Daredevil. I turned my back on the Hulk and I was voting for Daredevil. That's what I got to say. So, hey, we'd like to thank everybody for joining our issue number 9. Issue number 10, we'll have Steve take charge. And then we got some more guest stars coming up. And, it's going to be a little bit of surprises for you because you're not going to know. But we get the legends. And legends come back, too. And, we're getting close on our annual. I guess we'll have to get somebody special for our annual, right? I think that's what's going to happen on issue number 12. So, hey, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us. And write to us. Tell us what issues you may want us to decipher or go over. But remember, you got to keep it between 1960 and maybe 1985-ish. You go past that, we don't know, and we don't care.
Well, technically, I do go up to 1999.
99.
I go up to 99. That in 1999. So I do have quite a a breadth. So if anyone does have any questions about some 1990 stuff, I am there. Now, it's when you get past the year 2000, then Bad Steve comes out. But before that, it's Good Steve with happy smiley face.
And Otto's just here for the ride. So we'd like to thank him.
I love Otto is 1961 to 2022.
Right. Maybe one day, maybe someday soon, I can talk about an issue soon. But
look at him. Look at Otto getting too big for his britches. Look at that.
That's the whole thing, though. I'd have to come correct. I would have to study like a midterm because the last thing I want to do is be fanboyed out.
Because you'll get Steve going.
And say, Otto, you're wrong about that.
And I know exactly the issue he's going to come out with. I know which one he's going to start off with.
Okay.
It's going to be Team Youngblood #1.
Yeah, Team Youngblood, exactly. How did you know? That was it.
So, I was thinking Prophet, but I could be wrong. Right? All right, we'd like to thank everybody. So Steve, get us out of here. What do we got to tell them?
You know what? This has been a great show. Boom!